All right, we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Happy to be back after skipping on Wednesday. Hope you guys are having an okay week, all things considered here in the world. But anyway, like all the other usual Sunday night live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And I see we have Corvette, Kevin, and Tony, and Danny, and Vishal, and Lancewath, and Felix, and let me see, Timothy, and Luke. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. I really appreciate it. And so Corvette says, hey, Matt, it's been a week since my dad has had his 2025 BMW iX X-Drive 50. We did go back to the BMW dealer. They went over the car with us and showed us how everything works. That's awesome. And he says we even got his BMW ID set up, and we even did try the auto park feature when we were at the dealership. But with his ID set up, we got more features now, including the lane assist. He's loving it. That's awesome. I'm glad he's enjoying it, and glad that they did a proper amount of education of walking you guys through it and how it works. Because I think there's a lot of dealerships that don't do that very well or at all. I mean, the amount of crazy stories I hear about dealers that aren't informing people about how to even work an EV, what to do. Just insane things like people that are buying Jeep Wrangler 4xEs and didn't even know they were plug-in hybrids, like all kinds of stuff. So I'm glad you had a good dealer there. And Tony says, hey, Matt, a couple of cool finds this weekend. A 90s Celica GTS. I saw one of those too, actually, today. World War II Jeep Willys, very nice, and a Cadillac Alante. That is another rare one. Impressive that people keep those on the road. I'm sure it's hard to find parts. That's awesome. And hope you had a great weekend too, Tony. And Danny says, hello, only got to drive yesterday. Had to do my town's local St. Patrick's Day parade today. Made a lot of kids your daughter's age happy again. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Yeah, especially at that younger age, they really love the bands. And so thanks for doing that. And he also says he found out his town has a local Corvette Miata club. Nice, that's awesome. And he says the Bolt's still living with the two front dead TPMS sensors, and we need to get new wiper blades for it. And found out that the Bolt uses 26-inch blades on the front. Isn't that huge? Yeah, that does sound kind of big, but it's been a long time since I actually replaced wiper blades, so I'm not sure. But I remember, it's got a really big windshield, right? So it's just kind of the nature of stuff like that. But at least you don't have I think, is it the Hummer EV that has 3 wipers? They're small, but it's got because of how narrow the windshield is on that thing. But that's interesting. And Michelle says Audi has ended orders of the A8 in Germany. Another sedan bites the dust. Yeah, it's kind of weird how Audi just walked away from competing in that segment. A8 sales have been down the last few years, but it's just because it's old as dirt. And for some people that's appealing if you're overwhelmed with the super screens and the Mercedes and all the crazy stuff in the BMW. I think the Audi was kind of the nice conservative choice, but I don't know why they're not. I guess it's just they're just hurting for money so much. But it just, especially now in the electric era, it's the ultimate luxury car. This is it's a no-brainer. You get rid of all engine noise, you get rid of all sound whatsoever, really, with the EV. And it's a skateboard, so that makes it extra easy. Maybe they just couldn't stretch the PPE platform long enough to put a suitably sized A8 on that platform, but it would be really pretty easy, I would think, to take what you already have with A6, stretch it by a foot or two, and call it the A8. You can copy and paste the interior. They're doing that with all the other Audis. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel here. Copy and paste everything and just make it a longer A6. I think that would be fine. Obviously there's some people that still like a gas version, but I think even if you have to really, be cheap about it, go for that. They also have the A6, and you can again take that platform, the PPC combustion version of that, and stretch that out too. It just, I'm guessing the volumes are too low and the business case just doesn't work. But how does the business case still work for 7 Series or S Class? I know they sell a little bit better, but I don't know if those cars are necessarily about making a bunch of money per se, as it is having a halo product having a well-rounded luxury lineup. Um, which is kind of crazy. Maybe they will have something eventually, and it's just, not a top priority for them, and they're fine, taking a few years off or something. I don't know, but I feel like A8 can't be gone forever. Maybe it is. I don't know. Stranger things have happened, but yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that here this week. And Danny says my favorite A8s are the W12 and the S8 with the Gallardo V10. Both models were offered in the US. Yep. Oh, I know. They had them at my dealership whenever I was working there, getting them in brand new. Yeah, the W12s were super rare. They're actually a lot more rare than the S8s with the Lambo V10, which actually, funny enough, the V10, it's often misreferred to as the Gallardo V10. It actually was an Audi design that Volkswagen group and then Lamborghini took and adapted and changed it for the Gallardo. I always had it backwards too, and I just learned this like it was 6 months ago or something. But it's actually technically not a Lamborghini V10. It's just more famous than the Lamborghini, but that one's actually kind of different as well. That's why there's also a 5-liter V10, and then went up to 5.2 in Gallardo. But anyway, yeah, it still sounds just like the Lambo motor, But that motor is surprisingly reliable. But I mean, I would see those S8s when they were brand new, and then even shortly thereafter. I mean, there was a few, because those I think came out, was it 06 or 07? And by the time I was nearing the end of my tenure there around 2011, there was actually one person already had gotten over 100,000 miles on theirs, and it was running flawlessly still. The W12 is definitely a little bit more of a basket case, but they were, way more rare. I remember the head doctor for the Pittsburgh Steelers had a W12A8, and that was the only one we ever got in to detail and stuff from time to time. But other than that, and that had the little fridge in the back and stuff, which was fun. But yeah, the S8 was really cool. I still can't imagine that those things are going to be cheap forever. I think they are going to appreciate someday, because it's it's a V10 in something like that. It's never going to happen again. It was a short-lived thing, and it was really cool and really well done, I think, too, as well. So yeah, I have a lot of fun memories of of enjoying. And I never drove the W12 more than up and down the street, but the S8s I got a little bit more experience, and they're fun. And I hope to review one someday, because I just drove them for work. I never actually got a chance to review one, so I'm hoping to do that someday. They're just kind of hard to find these days, I think. And Lancelot says, good evening. Hope all is well with everyone. P.S. I want my hour back. I know. I'm running off an hour less sleep, because even though, you would think that our body clocks would be like, oh, I'm going to sleep in an hour. My daughter's does not work that way, apparently. And she was up bright and early at her usual wake time. And so, yeah, I just lost that hour of sleep, and hence the coffee here tonight. So cheers. Giarcola. But yeah, I hope you're doing well too, Lancelot. And Danny says, my only other cool spots or interesting ones were a 10th gen Accord hybrid and a 2014 Accord 6.6, meaning the V6 6-speed. I know I saw 2 totally different but cool Accords. Yeah, nice, fun spots there. Felix says, 6 of us are waiting for the rock star of automotive journalism. I'm sorry that I was a little late there, Felix, but thanks for sticking around. Vishal says, on a whim, I stopped at the Toyota dealer near me just to look at cars. Saw a couple new Priuses with clear taillights. Is this new for 26? I don't recall seeing clear taillights on them before. So the clear taillights are on the Prime now, plug-in hybrid version. So unless that's a 2026 change that I didn't clock, you were just looking at plug-in hybrid ones. I think they may have changed that, but that was whenever they launched the Prime, that was the distinction, was you had the clear taillights in the back on those. But it wouldn't surprise me if they put them on all Priuses at this point, but I'm not sure. And also, Lancelot, thanks so much for gifting 10 memberships. I really appreciate the huge amount of generosity there. And so happy to see a bunch of, looks like mostly new faces are able to get those memberships there. And so thank you so much, though, for supporting the memberships. And actually, while we're on the topic of memberships, I also want to bring up, because I think hopefully most of you have probably trickled in by now that are going to be here for tonight that are members. I'm working on the 4-year badge for membership because many of you OGs have are going to be crossing that 4-year mark here this month. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but I forgot to ask you guys because we actually came up with a new color combo for the 3-year design based on what you guys said you wanted. So, I'm sure you've probably seen, we have gold for the 12 plus months. For the 2-year, what is it? I think it's white and silver. Let me see if anyone has that badge. I know it's the white and purple there for the 3-year badge. But I'm open if you guys have any colors. I'd love to hear if there's any colors you would like for, if it's especially a badge you're going to be having here, once you cross over the 4-year mark. Let me know if there's a color that you guys prefer. Because it's kind of the same design, so it's easy for me to just swap colors out, no problem. Or if there's another idea for a design beyond just the typical kind of thing. I like recognizing the time amount there, with just so people can see at quick glance, wow, that person's been a member for a certain amount of years. So I like giving you guys that recognition. So I think sticking to the design hopefully is good, but if you have a color that you'd like to see for the 4-year badge, definitely let me know. But while we're waiting for those to trickle in here, I'm gonna keep on going here with the other questions. So let me see. So Timothy's asking, why don't I review more new Volvos? So the main reason is that they don't do good views. And that's why I say yes or no to a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to review, that I just don't because I just know it won't get views. And so that's the main reason. Also, Volvos are they don't have a huge press fleet. They're a small company, so it's not like I have tons of opportunities to get my hands on Volvos anyway. And especially now with them, going with a lot of the EVs, I'd be very selective about, stuff that I think is going to make sense. Like the EX30 I did last year, I figured that would bomb, and it basically did bomb. But I was just like, there's a story to tell here with performance angle, 400 horsepower and this tiny little thing. And it was actually a lot of fun. And it actually was impressive to me. I also personally am still curious about the EX90. So I'm probably going to try and get one of those in this year just for myself, even if only 5 people watch that video. But aside from that, yeah, any of the other stuff, I mean, the EX60 should do pretty good volume. So whenever those start arriving, and also because that's one we're kind of interested in if money allows in a year and a half here. So there's a few where I just like Volvo, so I'll review them, and I do want to review more, and I'll try, but I turned down some of them too. Like I think there's an EX30 cross country coming in to the fleet, and that's one that I'm not going to touch because the regular EX30 did terribly. It's not any more practical with the cross country. It's just an inch extra ground clearance or whatever. So that one's one I'll skip for sure. But I'm going to see if I can get EX90 and EX60 this year. And let me see. Luke says, did you have brake rotor warping issues early in the Mach-E? I think my Maverick has front warping brake rotors and has 12,700 miles. So it was just the rears. I think you might be having a kind of a different problem. It might just be Ford sucks at making rotors in general, but our front rotors were fine on the Mach-E because EVs primarily, use those with the regen and stuff. The rear brakes are more so just an emergency kind of thing most of the time and don't get used a whole lot. So it happened pretty early though, because I mean, how many miles does that thing even have at the end? I mean, over 3 years, I think we did just under 20,000 miles, I think, if I remember correctly. So, but I remember at like 10,000, like it was like already a bother. I think it was already at like 5,000 miles. I remember seeing scoring. I can't remember exactly, but it was early on, fairly early on. So yes, it was before your 12.7 mark there, Luke. So, definitely, while you're under the bumper to bumper warranty and while the mileage is so low, definitely get it looked at because, no matter how you drive a vehicle, it shouldn't be warping rotors unless you're, doing hard track days or something, which obviously you're not in a Maverick. There's no reason to have warped rotors at 12,000 miles. That's ridiculous. So definitely take it to the dealer, make them pay for it. Don't dare you let them try and blame it on you or, say, oh, well, it's a wear and tear item, blah, blah, blah. No, like rotors need to last longer than that. Do not accept anything less than a free replacement. And a good apology as well. Because that's BS. I haven't heard about that in Mavericks. Hopefully, you just got a bad batch of rotors there or something, but maybe it's a thing. I'm not sure. Again, because of how they failed with the rears on the Mach-E, it wouldn't surprise me, sadly, but I hadn't heard about that. That's new to me, but totally possible that that's a common thing. And let me see here. Theodore, thank you so much for being a member for 3 months now. I really appreciate the support. And I don't see any question attached, but I'll be keeping an eye out here for any comments you have here to follow up. But thanks so much for your support, Theodore. And thanks for continuing to watch some of those older videos. He's been going back and watching some of the old stuff. And it's always fun to even sometimes I'll get a notification of one of those comments and it'll remind me of like, oh yeah, I reviewed that thing 8 years ago. I forgot about that one or, whatever. And so that's kind of fun. And let me see here. Mr. 705, thanks for stopping by too. And Lantern Tales as well. And Lantern Tales also says he saw a blue 1970 Datsun 1600. It was rusted, but it was a survivor, 70 horsepower. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, at least they're pretty light. So, it's not like 70 horsepower and something modern like a Mirage, but still, that's a really cool find. Nice one. And Michelle says he saw a Cadillac Vistic in the same color as your Lyric. Such a nice color. Yeah, I do love the color. Cadillac does some really nice colors. Even just GM in general, they have like that purplish gray that's really pretty too. Just so many vibrant colors, the blues and stuff. The Velocity blue is really great. There's so many good ones. Lantern Taylor says the next gen Xbox called Project Hilux has been announced and confirmed for a future release. Yeah, I heard about that. It's a nice announcement. There is no way that's coming anytime soon. I was actually talking to my brother-in-law about this yesterday. He's like, between the RAM shortages, the fact that it's going to be a while, and also like all the consoles are pretty fresh. Like there's still people that don't even have a PS5 and stuff. And so like to be, already trying to introduce new consoles just seems kind of crazy. But like with the RAM shortages and then, the chip issues we're going to have if this Taiwan stuff starts to happen, in 2027 or 2028, like I wouldn't hold your breath for those new consoles, honestly. Maybe if everyone actually calms down in the world and things and AI chills out, maybe you'll have a chance of getting something like that before 2030. But otherwise, not to be a bearer of bad news, but not a great time to launch a new tech device like that, I think. But we'll see how it plays out. And Vishal says, I agreed. I love the A8 for the understated vibe. I would love an S8. Yeah, I know. I'm bummed I never actually got to review any of them because they had an A8 in the fleet, but it was before I started getting Audi press cars. And they've just never put anything through since, but I'd love to get my hands on them. They seem really cool. I always had a little bit of a soft spot for the S8, thanks to the Transporter 2, where he had the S8. Although the original Transporter, talking about also good car chases. That's still one of my favorite car chases in the Transporter, the first one. But he had that manual V12 BMW 760i. That thing was awesome too. But the S8 was cool. And Danny says, what are your thoughts on Blazer EV? Just curious about that. I did multiple videos on that, so definitely check those out for all of my thoughts from, while I'm behind the wheel of it. I did a full review on Blazer, also did a week with the Blazer EV. The main thing that annoyed me about it was, the lack of CarPlay and Android Auto. Aside from that, it drove nice. I mean, our Lyric is based on the same thing. They drive really, really well. That's, one of the most impressive things about them, I think. Smooth ride. The Blazer interior is a little cheap, especially considering the price tag sometimes they can get up to. Now, I guess they're cheap with the lease, rates and stuff. But, and they had some glitches early on that were, not great. But now it seems like they've gotten, I think, most of those bugs worked out. And everything seems to be better now. So if the price is right, Blazer can make sense. But the thing about it is Equinox EV is smaller, so it's easier to manage and park and stuff, but it has pretty much the same interior space, honestly. Like rear legroom is really close between the two of them because they just did such a poor job with packaging Blazer EV. You have a dashboard that's long enough you can serve dinner on it, and it's it just means you lose out on all this interior space you could be using. The cargo space isn't very big, and this is why the Prologue kind of struggles with this as well. Even the Prologue sells better, surprisingly, I think because of it having CarPlay. but like a Prologue, like that rear hatch, again, same hatch as a Blazer pretty much, has less space than a CRV, even though it's like kind of almost like a mid-sized, large luxury, or not luxury, but large electric SUV. That's like the whole point of EV is you're supposed to open up interior space, and like you don't have to worry about drive shafts and all this other stuff. So it like is supposed to give you more interior space, and the Blazer just is horrible with packaging. So that's my biggest gripe. They kind of fixed it a little bit in Lyric, and for us, we don't need maximum amount of space having just one kid and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of why it comes out of the deal. But personally, if you don't care about not having CarPlay, especially like with the Cadillac, even we would have gone for the Optic because it's pretty similar amounts of space. So I think those smaller ones are kind of stealing some sales away from the bigger ones these days. Confirmation says, hello, Matt. My weird spot for today was a first gen Mazda MX-6. That's a rare spot. That's awesome. Let me see. Michelle says, of course, they had a black GR Corolla sitting out front. Very nice. And I see your GR Corolla mentioned, and so I will have a sip of coffee. Cheers, everyone. And Electric Tales also adds about the Xbox that it'll probably be between $1,200 and $1,500, which also, I guess the answer is yes. These companies are just so tone deaf. Why do they think people have that kind of money to spend on a video game console? Like, it's insane. Especially these days, if things were, if we were on top of the world, everyone had a bunch of money, wages were great, everything was good. Maybe, but like, there's no way. There's no way it's just going to be, I guess, a plaything for a few rich people, but like, what's the point? Like, they're just going to go build an epic PC rig anyway if they're going to, blow a crap load of money on this stuff. So, man, I hadn't heard the rumored price tag, but that's good luck with that, Microsoft. That's gonna be that'll be funny to watch that crash and burn. Anyway, Jorge says, my spot, a green Evora GT on a day it had been raining all day. We waved at each other because I was in the Miata. That's awesome, and thanks for stopping by, Jorge. I really appreciate it, and that's cool. I'm happy to see some people are buying Evoras. Because it's that underdog. Maybe more people will buy them now because Cayman's out of production, but yeah, I think they deserve more love. I'd love to review one, just haven't had a chance, but yeah, I'm sure they got to be great cars. And I'm not paying $42,000 for a Prelude. Thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate your generosity, and happy to see. Yeah, it looks like more new faces able to get those for the most part there, and so thank you so much for that, and hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by as well. Okay, it's bassist, and let me see here. Confirmation says they also saw an Acura 1.7 EL today. I don't even know what that is. Is that? Yeah, I don't know. Unless, no, not even. I have no idea. I have no idea what that is. I'd love to know though. So definitely fill me in there, confirmation, because that, yeah, another fun car trivia thing I'm not aware of apparently. Vijay says, what car did you get into that made you like a brand as a whole? For me, with Volkswagen, it was the Mark V Jetta in 2014. My uncle had been a Volkswagen fan ever since. The 5-cylinder was so cool too. That's a really good question. I'm kind of curious if you guys have any responses to that one as well. I mean, there's a few cars that really made me change my perception, I guess, of some brands. I think the C8 Corvette was really like kind of a turning point for Chevrolet in general. I mean, they had some great stuff, obviously Camaro and many others, but I think like that was like, wow, like this is something next level from Chevy that I didn't think they had in them. I mean, that was a huge shock when that thing actually came out, and came out at such a great price tag. And then the wild stuff they've been doing. I mean, I think that, especially Corvettes in general, I honestly never really liked Corvettes. They were fine. It's whatever. I can appreciate what they stood for, and, they were fun cars to drive. Don't get me wrong, but like, it was never a car that I was like, oh, I'd like to have a Corvette. It just never pulled on my heartstrings, even in the slightest. Doesn't matter if you're talking a crazy cool version or whatever, just had zero emotion for Corvette. And then C8, even regular C8, it was fun. I was like, oh, this is cool. But Z06, first Corvette in my life that I've ever been like, wow, like I actually desperately want one of these. If I had the money, like I'd totally actually own one. So I think that's one of those kinds of cars. But as far as like for a whole brand in general, there's probably an answer here, but I'm trying to think of a brand that I didn't love personally that then really changed my mind. Because I think a lot of brands have high spots and low spots, and I've always, I don't usually, make a judgment on an entire brand based on a car or whatever. I try to look at the whole lineup, but there's certain cars that are better than others and certain things where it's just like, GM, for example, makes some really fantastic sports cars and, luxury cars and things like that. But then some of the regular stuff, it's like, oh, well, they're not keeping up or whatever the case is. So, but yeah, I can't think of anything else. I think the Corvette is the one that was the biggest like paradigm shift for me, specifically for Corvettes in general. But yeah, that's probably it. And let me see here. That's a great question, though. Very, very good question. And let me see. Brian, thanks for stopping by. And Luke says, basically, I get a shaky brake pedal and shaky steering wheel when I brake. I feel like it could be from using the regen and the hybrid. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely warp rotors. You're absolutely right with that diagnosis. As far as, I mean, regen from the hybrid, there are, like the regen braking components there. But even with that, I mean, unless you like never get into the friction brakes, which I have a hard time believing, even in a hybrid, I mean, you should be using, like, you just in regular driving, the car will be using those brakes. So I think it just, yeah, for some reason they must have gotten warped. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I would say maybe if you've done a couple of panic stops, if you did like a really bad panic stop, but also that's another way to kind of, if it's mild warping, that is one of the, old tricks I remember is you kind of do some high speed braking and that kind of evens them out a little bit slightly. So if you want to try and remedy it a little bit yourself, but hopefully Ford just takes care of it for you. But yeah, because it shouldn't happen regardless. And let me see. General Chicken, thanks for stopping by. He says, hey, Matt, I've been seeing a lot of 2012 to 13 Boss 302 Mustangs come up for sale in my area recently. Most have been low 30s with lowish miles. Do you think these will stay in that price range? I mean, for the rest of the 2020s, it's going to be really hard to predict pricing for anything because I think now we're seeing oil prices spike. We could see another bout of inflation hit us pretty hard. And then that just, throws everything off kilter as far as, our perception of, what is a normal price. And, again, everyone's been struggling with this for the past 5 years, partially because their wages haven't gone up, but, so anyway, it's, as far as like the general, even if we try and isolate from, inflation and from other issues in the world that may affect that, I think that the trajectory for Boss 302s is going to go up. I don't envision them getting much lower than that. And the reason why I say that is, there are like some cheap SN95 Mach 1s. And, SN95, I think, is an outlier because I feel like there's still not a lot of appreciation for those. And I don't know if there ever will be, honestly. But I know there's more appreciation for, that 06 and later Mustang generation, and especially those Boss 302s. I know there's a lot of people that really do love those, especially the 13s with a little bit of a refresh that it got, I think. So I mean, this is just my speculation. Don't take this to the bank, but I don't think they will get much lower. And again, especially just with the realities of the world and everything else, I think, yeah, it's probably going to just level out there. It may sit around there for a while and stay in that price range like you're asking. It could sit for a little bit, but I think long term, it's certainly a good investment because that car is not going to 20 grand. I don't think it's not going to zero. It's not going to scrap. Those are always going to be desirable cars. So I think I would I would, wager that you're probably pretty close to the bottom for where those are gonna get before they start going up again. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't started going up already because, just it's a lot of car for the money, especially when you look at how much just a regular EcoBoost costs these days and how much everything is, so expensive. Like I've said with S550 being a better value than S650, but like, especially when you go back to those older ones, like that is a really special and collectible car for, the price of, a low trim Camry, brand new. I mean, I think it's a good buy, but I don't know how much time you have to wait around for that because, it's kind of conflicting stuff right now where you have, you might see the appeal of gas cars go down a little bit here as gas prices skyrocket. We'll see how long that lasts for. I think, elevated gas prices are here to stay for a long while personally, but, you have that, which is going to kind of hurt gas demand, but for specialty stuff like that, probably will hurt it a little bit less because these aren't cars you're daily driving and stuff typically. So I would assume yeah, I would assume it's not gonna really get much cheaper. So, sorry, I was thinking through this out loud, but yeah, I'd say it may stay at that price, but I also would be nervous that it's gonna start shooting up as people just get burned out with everything being expensive. And again, especially if we start running into chip shortages, then we start running into the used car market spiking, which I think you will start to see towards the end of this year and early next year as the RAM shortages hit. If you see a bunch of people that aren't able to get S650 Mustangs, maybe they start looking at S550s. Maybe they start looking at, the, generation before that. I'm blanking on the code name for currently, but, I think used cars are going to go up in price, in my opinion, again. And then if inflation kicks into that, then, we're off to the races. So, I think, and this also, because I don't think, even interest rates are going to get much better because, even though we have the bad jobs report that would normally cause an interest rate cut, there's, again, the fuel prices and stuff, which are going to cause inflation, and that's going to discourage them from dropping interest rates. So, yeah, all of this to say, I think if I were needing a car or looking at a car, I wouldn't waste too much time. I feel like it's another kind of period now where you kind of want to get something. A lot of these things are pretty heavily subsidized. Used market obviously is kind of different. Maybe you're paying cash or something, but like I would get a car before things get much crazier personally. Because I think again, you're going to see car prices get all topsy turvy again. Later this year and maybe even sooner again, depending on how bad gas gets. But yeah, it's a great question, and I love those things. I'm sure you've already watched my review on the Boss 302 from way back when. A lot of people, it's one of their favorite reviews that I've done. It's a lot of fun, very hilarious reaction. Definitely check that out if you haven't. And Vishal says, what's odd? The 2012 Forster review you did back in the day keeps showing up in my recommended. Very random. That's one that I wish didn't get recommended because that was my first review and it wasn't great. But yeah, the YouTube recommendation system is weird. Because it's supposed to be based on your watch history, but unless you've been shopping for 2012 Foresters, like it shouldn't be popping up. So that's fascinating. So thanks for letting me know that, Michelle. And Theodore says, I hope you and your family are doing well. We're doing okay. I hope you guys are doing well too, Theodore. And WK Beats says, apart from Elon, who would you say is the most historically unlikable automobile president or CEO? I mean, a lot of people really, talk crap about DeLorean, and he did the whole drug smuggling ring or whatever it is, and John DeLorean probably one of the not great ones. I think also Henrik Fisker, like it sounds like he's very smart, in some ways, but he just doesn't know how to run a company as far as the Fisker Ocean bombing and then the thing before that bombing, the Rivero or whatever, that those Fiskers just always terrible. So, I maybe those ones. I mean, to me, there's not other super unlikable ones. I know like a lot of people just are angry at, Mary Barra. I know there's people that were mad about Carlos Tavares and the way he, ran Stellantis. So yeah, I'm sure there's others. Also, Carlos Ghosn, probably another one that almost ruined Nissan. And I mean, as far as Nissan's concerned, I mean that guy is like the number one public enemy. So I mean, he's probably up there. Just all the waste and all the crazy stuff. I mean, like he literally had them make the Murano Cross Cabriolet because his wife wanted that car to be a thing, and instead of just doing a coach built one like any normal super rich person, he decided to make the company through this endeavor and do this and try and market and sell this thing. I mean, makes for great Savage Geese content, but just like horrible ideas. There's probably a few there. That's probably the highlights off the top of my head. I'm sure there's others I'm missing. But probably some of the top ones. And Lantern Tail says IGN also showcased Forza Horizon 6 gameplay. It looks a little unfinished, but we got until May 19th for the final release. Yeah, I saw that popped up, but I haven't had time to watch it here this week. But yeah, I hope that it's they don't rush it to market. I think people are excited about it and they understand that, but you kill any momentum if you have something that's half baked or not well done. So hopefully they polish it up a little bit. And Run Fenton Run says the Transporter is a classic. What do you think about Acura discontinuing the RDX? I always thought it was a nice SUV. Yeah, I mean, they didn't want to. That's just a poor gamble on their part. And I kind of got into this. So I did a video discussing this whenever Honda and Acura gave us that information at the beginning of the year. If you search Honda's plans for 2026 or whatever, you'll see my in-depth thoughts on their whole plan for this year. But RDX 100, I mean, they haven't said this officially, but I'm willing to bet a good amount of money the story of that, because you don't have one of your top selling vehicles in what is already a very small lineup just go MIA for 2 years. I mean, they will be doing a new one. They already confirmed that it's going to be a hybrid version in 2028, I think, or maybe 2027. No, I think it's 2028. Yeah. But like, you would never deliberately drop out for 2 years like that. And even if you're between a rock and a hard place, you would continue to sell the old one. And I think, when you look at the thing, and not to like humble brag, I was just talking to the Dodge CEO this week. I was on the Charger RT event, and I was fortunate enough to sit next to the Dodge CEO at dinner and had a great chat with him. But, and he brought this up too, the thing that no one understands is it takes 4 to 5 years from when you've made a decision about a product until, when that actually hits the road. You got 4 to 5 years for that, sometimes even longer. But like with RDX, they have RSX, and it's no coincidence that RSX is going to be coming online right as RDX is dropping out. That was the plan. The idea, I think, whether or not they were going to get rid of the RDX name or not, I don't know. But like, I guarantee you, back whenever they made this decision in 2022 or 2021, EVs were red hot. Everyone was paying a 10 grand markup for a Mach-E and all this other crazy stuff. And they saw that. They said, oh, okay, we need to hop on this trend. And so they said, next gen RDX is going to be electric, and this is all going to go swimmingly, smoothly, and no, which I still, it's insane to me that like no one saw this coming, because you can go back and watch my videos 5 years ago, and this is why I said Toyota's doing it right by going slow. But anyway, so back in 2021 and 2022, it would have made sense to say, yes, RDX is going to be electric and this is going to be fine. And so that was the plan. And we get to now, whenever it's finally, coming online, and it's like, oh crap, we still need to have the gas one. And so that's why I don't know if RSX was always the plan or not, but like, at least now, last minute was like, okay, well, we need to preserve the RDX name for a gas thing, and we need to scramble and, come up with this new RDX. And I think, as they saw things starting to hit the fan in 2024, which is why, again, 4 to 5 years, we got something now coming in 2028 for RDX. So they corrected course as quickly as they could, but it was just that 2-year gap. And that's exactly what we're going to now be living through, is that 2-year gap that they screwed up on with calling the shots as far as how that was the future was going to unfold. And this is why it's so hard to plan around fast changing times, administration changes, culture changes, energy changes. I mean, all these things. It's really it's so hard. I told Matt Mackler, Dodge CEO, just this week. I was like, I do not envy your job. And I actually, if you guys just saw, he didn't tell us this, but like the day or two after, was when the news broke that he's now also running Chrysler and Alfa Romeo, because Chris Fuel, she stepped away from Chrysler for, I think, personal reasons. They said. I'm love to hear the backstory there, but it didn't get anything. Because again, as far as we know, whenever I was sitting next to the guy, he was just the Dodge CEO, but now he's also running Alfa. I would have had so many more comments and questions once I knew he was running Chrysler and Alfa as well. But yeah, like, but getting back to the whole Acura thing, it's just like this is the problem, and that's what happened. I'm guaranteeing you that's what happened. So Acura is not deliberately sinking themselves. Now, I think they still, if I were running Acura, I would still desperately find a way to keep RDX in production. They said, all of the suppliers are going down, and everything was already scheduled to sunset, this summer or whatever. But I still would have been like, okay, if our factory has to switch over to something else, if the suppliers can't do this, we need to source new suppliers and like build it in Magna Steyr, where they build all the other stuff they can't find homes for, like the Supra, the G-Wagon, all those other things that can't be done in regular plants. I'd be like, build them in Austria and send them over, although that might not be a great idea depending on how things unfold in Europe. But regardless, like do something to get that made is the bottom line, because that's your breadwinner. You don't want to lose that. So yes, but it's not by design. It's certainly, Acura won't admit it, but it's not their choice. It's just that they screwed up, and now they got to deal with it for the next 2 years and take it on the chin. So it's a shame, because I love RDX. I think it's great. I've done many reviews on RDXs. I still think it's one of my favorites of that segment as far as how it drives. I think it's a really good value. I think it still looks great. And they're priced well. I've always liked RDX. It's definitely actually one of my go-to picks in that segment. If you don't need to have, one of the German luxury things or whatever. Yeah, great question. Let me see. Luke says, I currently have an Xbox Series X, but I'm getting a computer nerd buddy of mine to build me a PC this summer. Nice. That'll be fun. And Lantern Tales says, I looked at a 26 Honda Prelude at my local dealership. It's 43 grand starting, along with a 3 grand dealer markup. Well, I guess 3 grand's tame as far as Honda dealers go, but they are so tone deaf. I know they're hoping that one sucker is going to come in and be born yesterday and write a check, but I don't know. Oh, man, I feel like dealerships could make so much more of a killing if they actually had smart people running half of them. Like I've spent a lot of time around a lot of dealerships, and some of the like actual lower level people are pretty smart and very, very smart. But I mean, some of the owners and some of the people calling the shots, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe this place is so successful with the brain power we have running these places. And that's a prime example there. You see all the grief about how Prelude is too expensive. What's your solution? Oh, let's add more cost to it. That's going to be great. Good plan there. I mean, there's a lot of things that just blow my mind these days, but like stuff like that, it's like, where does that idea come from? Please talk me through this thought process. It just anyway, I'm very passionate still about dealer markets, as you can see. But anyway, Lancelot says, with regards to the new Xbox, I've heard a rumor that it'll only be able to play both console and PC only games. I heard that as well. I think that might have been confirmed. That's going to do both, but yeah, which I guess is nice if you are someone who doesn't want to get into the nerdy side of building your own computer, which I mean, my buddy did one. It seems like it's a lot of fun. So I don't know, but yeah, maybe that'll help, but I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. I feel like Microsoft in general is just losing to PlayStation, and I see Lancer Tales, speaking of that, says I'm switching to PlayStation, screw Microsoft. Yeah, I'm also like, so I have not the newest Xbox, whatever the last generation was, because I haven't booted it up in forever, because I'm so out of the loop. I haven't played video games in a while, but I think if I do ever have the time and the money to play video games again, like I would totally go the PlayStation side, especially now that like even Forza is going to be going on PlayStation here 6 months after I think and all this. There's doesn't seem like there's any actual Xbox exclusive. I mean, I don't stay again abreast of all this stuff, but it doesn't seem like there's any reason to be on the Xbox side versus the PlayStation side anymore. But let me see. And confirmation says the Canadian Acura Civic is the EL. Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for the info. So yeah, Michelle says, yeah, that was the Civic in Canada for the Civic generation 01 to 05. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I never see those. And that's kind of surprising because I see a lot of Canadian cars around here. I never see those. So thanks for the info. Theodore says, it won't let me ask a question as a member. It keeps saying I'm not a member. Yeah, maybe, do you have a different account maybe, Theodore? Or maybe like something happened with your payment or something. I'm not sure because, yeah, on my thing, you don't have the green username there. So it's acting like you don't have a membership for some reason. I'm not sure why. I don't know if, yeah, there's a different login you have maybe that is under the membership, or maybe there's an issue there with the billing. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. I'll definitely still, keep an eye out for your questions here tonight, Theodore. But yeah, I'm not sure why that's happening. Definitely send YouTube a message because I have no control over that stuff. Definitely send them a help message or whatever if it's something that you're not able to figure out there, and hopefully they can help resolve that for you. And Michelle says the Mark V Jetta was my first taste of the German vehicles as a whole. I had never been in one until that point. And I always joke with him that he's the reason we've got 2 Volkswagens in the family. Nice. Yeah, it's great that the Mark V made a great impression. The Mark V was a great step forward, especially for Mark IV, where it was kind of that older Volkswagen-y kind of thing. And Mark V was like, oh, okay, now we got some like Audi inspiration, and it was kind of going a little bit up market. And I mean, still, especially the lower trim ones, still weren't super impressive. But Mark V was cool. You had the 5-cylinder, half of that Audi V10 basically in those, and just some cool, quirky stuff. And let me see, Lance Wallace asking about Kia Stingers. I'm not sure if that's in reference to something else we were talking about earlier. Sorry. I love Stinger though. Kia Stinger is a great car. Vishal says, also have extended family back in India. Grandma on my dad's side has a Volkswagen Vento, and another aunt on my mom's side has a Skoda Rapid, which is Skoda's version of the Vento. Interesting. Volkswagen really runs deep in our family. Nice. That's funny. Yeah, I don't even know what those look like. That's kind of cool. I wish we got more of these lower price vehicles. I know that it's partially because of crash test standards being higher here in America, at least for now. But yeah, I wish we'd get more of those other market models over here, because I think that would be a pretty quick fix to people who need affordable cars. Just send up stuff that they sell even in the Mexican market, plenty of stuff there. And I also, I did mention that to the Dodge CEO. I'm like, I'd love to see more Fiats. I'm like, why do we not have Fiat Panda in America? I told him this. I really went to bat. I think some of the things we even discussed in these live streams, I was like, look, we need to have Dodge Neon come back and, do that as, even if it's a rebadged Fiat, like I think it's the way they're doing it in Mexico or whatever. I'm like, I'd love to see that. I'm like, why do we not have Fiat Panda? It's one of the best selling things in Europe. Surely that's got a better chance than 508 does. Like I was, I don't know. They probably either hate me or love me. I don't know which it is. I mean, they keep inviting me for some reason, so I guess they don't hate me, but I'm sure they were rolling their eyes. But I mean, I was working all these little things in. I wasn't being obnoxious, but like, I was like, man, there's a lot of good stuff you guys have in Europe. I'd love to see some more of that, and we'll see with his leadership what they end up doing in the future. But yeah, I'd love to see more of that cheaper stuff. And Lantern Tail says the 05 to 14 Mustangs will hold their value as they're the last solid rear axle Mustangs, last true muscle car generation. That's a good point. You're right. Yeah, that would be one of the other reasons why, especially like a Barrett Jackson stuff in 30 years, that could be a another good thing to drive up the price for sure. And Luke says, I'm not super worried about the gas prices. 2008 didn't last forever, and 2024 didn't last forever. And plus, with the hybrid only having a 14-gallon tank, I fill that up a quarter of a tank. Yeah, I mean, you're pretty well insulated there with the hybrid for sure. And that's the great thing about hybrids is, or anyone getting more fuel efficient cars, you're less hurt by these gas price shocks when they happen. The only reason why I think the gas prices aren't going to drop as fast as they did back in those, two time periods is that, not only is it just the Strait of Hormuz or whatever it's called that's, blocked, but like they're bombing and blowing up a bunch of fuel depots and like refineries. And I mean, especially whenever they have a vested interest in rebuilding that stuff fast, I'm sure they can rebuild it pretty quickly, but like it's something that needs to be rebuilt. It's not just like reopening something or, like opening that, strait is like, one thing that can happen overnight if you want. But, the actual oil production is going down. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about why and stuff that's playing on behind the scenes. Russia's a big beneficiary of all this stuff right now currently because, now people are buying more Russian oil and stuff. But regardless, like, I think that there might be some other stuff, again, like the Russian oil and stuff that might help to buoy that a little bit, but it sounds like the Middle East is going to be, certainly at a lower output level for more than just a couple of months. It's going to be a problem. And anyway, I won't go more into that, but regardless, I think it might be here to say. I'd love to be wrong. I don't want to see anyone suffer financially, but I don't think gas is going to be cheap for a good while. And let me see. So Lantern tells us I only use my car to go to car meets and other social events, so I don't use my car extensively. Okay, yeah. So if we're talking for the, let me see here. If that's in regards to, let me see. No, never mind. Okay. Sorry, I was thinking we're getting mixed up with something else. So yeah, if you're not driving a lot, then you don't have too much to worry about gas prices. And confirmation says Marchione wasn't very well liked either. That's true. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more out of touch with European popularity stuff, but like I never heard too many terrible things about him. Compared to some of the other CEOs like Gosen, and others. But yeah, maybe there was more negative sentiment in Europe than I caught wind of here. And Vishal says, was watching Kirk's video on Honda Acura sales. Acura is such an afterthought. Without the ADX, they'd be crippled. RDX dropping off, TLX gone, ZDX gone, MDX, ADX, Integra keeping them afloat. Yeah, it's really crazy the position they've put themselves in. And, again, I won't repeat myself a million times like, I often do, but like, every Honda should have an Acura variant. Like it's that simple, especially when it's that, lean of a lineup. Like I just feel bad for Acura dealers because they got nothing to sell pretty much, at this point. I mean, even MDX is kind of stale. Integra got basically nothing for its refresh. It's basically ADX is the only momentum they got going there, and the only thing they're going to have for a while. I mean, I guess RSX. I thought RSX was going to be launching into a serious headwind, but again, if gas stays high, I think this could actually be a better year for EVs than anyone expected. But the jury's still out on that. Again, we'll have to see again how long this actually lasts and how much pain people can take at the pump before they're like, you know what, maybe I should go to an EV now. Because I think there's gonna be a lot of that. I know actually one of my neighbors just picked up an Equinox EV, and he keeps texting me and being like, "I'm really happy with the timing of my purchase," and I'm like, "I bet you are." Yeah, because it's a good time to buy an EV. I think again, we'll see how long it lasts, but it's gonna be rough if you're buying a lot of gas. Anyway. So Lantern Tail says, the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. Yeah, that was definitely not great for whoever the Volkswagen CEO was. But see, I don't even remember the guy's name. But yeah, the CEO must have known that was happening. Maybe with the Dieselgate thing. Yeah, I'm sure he did. And Lance Paul says, I know I'm going to get smacked for this, but Enzo Ferrari, I mean, he drove Lamborghini to leave and make his own company, didn't he? Of course, I may be wrong. No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Enzo Ferrari was not a nice guy. He seemed like he was a real yeah, annoying person in a lot of ways. And yeah, and he told whenever Lamborghini was like, your cars suck, he's like, no, you suck. You can't drive them. That's the problem, not that our cars suck. And then, yeah. So if Enzo was a nicer person, then Ferrari, I mean, obviously they'd have other competitors, but like Ferrari's biggest competitor wouldn't have existed most likely. So, yep, it's one of those things, you make your own problems sometimes if you, you never know when it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. It never hurts to be kind, because you never know when you might need it. But anyway, Jorge says, speaking of ghosting, it's almost time for my neighborhood Murano convertible to come out on sunny days. Apologies to fans, but yikes. Yeah, every once in a while I see one still running around here too. And yeah, it's fun you have one in your neighborhood. That's one of those things I'm sure puts a smile on your face. And Lantern Tail says, I would say the Chrysler Town and Country and the K cars really saved Chrysler. Without them, Chrysler would have died long ago. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a huge turnaround for them. There's been a lot of those kinds of stories for a lot of brands. I mean, even Ford almost went under right after World War II. And if it wasn't for the 49 Ford, that thing totally saved the company, with arguably a stolen design from Studebaker, which is some interesting, behind the scenes stuff. But like, yeah, there's been a lot of companies that are on the brink. And I think, we'll see what happens in the next few years, but it could get interesting for all these car companies again, especially if we have an '08 style thing where we, end up in this bad economy place and we have gas prices super expensive and everyone just decide, like, Stellantis decided to go all in on bring back the V8s. Okay, I hope everyone's got deep pockets for gas if they're going to do that, So, I mean, there's going to be, this is why I always was worried about Stellantis, because they might actually be, left without a paddle here if the one thing they were counting on, the free for all of gas for the next few years and emissions, turns out to not be as favorable as they were hoping. Might not be great for them, and we'll see what happens. I just hope these companies actually don't get bailouts, because it's like they keep making poor decisions, and it's just they need to save themselves. If they can't do that, like any other business, then let someone else do it instead. But I'm sure the Chinese would be more than happy to buy out these brands and take over the factories and make more competitive cars and cheaper cars. But anyway, so let me see. And yeah, like they introduced platform sharing. Yeah, they did a lot of that. I mean, there was certainly platform sharing before that. Ford Falcon was the basis and the chassis for the Mustang, and I mean that platform lasted them a good long while. And there's been some more of that stuff for sure, but yeah, absolutely, that was one of the ones that popularized it for sure. And Jordan, thank you so much for super chat. He says the headlights on our 2015 Fusion are haze free. I've seen 2020 Acura and Hondas with pissed yellow LEDs and haze. Thoughts? I mean, some of that is environmental for sure, in mileage, and if you're baking in the Arizona sun all day, that can accelerate that stuff more than maybe where you're at there in Florida. But I'm not sure. There might be some quality concerns there as well. I haven't seen that around here with anything super new. It's always the really old stuff that usually has that. But yeah, I'll have to see if I pick up on that while I'm out, seeing cars here in the future. I'm curious if any of you guys see that in newer stuff. But there could be very much some quality control stuff there going on too. And thank you so much for the super chat there, Jordan, and happy to see you here tonight too. Let me see. So Lance Foss says dealer markup equals privilege for doing business with us tax, right? Yeah, which no one's paying that, so yeah, it's crazy. And Luke says, I've gone to dealerships before and I've had to teach the salesman how to use controls and vehicles, or what powertrain the vehicle came with, or how to tell the difference between trim levels by look. Yeah, I know. I've had to do the same thing too, where, and so many of these dealers, they don't even try. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm sure you know more about it than I do. Like, the second I say something that's a little bit intelligent that shows that I know cars even just a little bit, they're like, oh yeah, you got this. And then they just like kick off and don't do anything at all. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I will say, now, I've been in the dealership business just on the backside, with the detailing stuff, but then also like my brother-in-law was in sales. I knew other people that own car dealerships and stuff. Like, it's high burnout for salesmen. I get it. They usually don't get treated very well. The pay isn't great unless you are a really, cutthroat salesman. It's tough, but that doesn't mean you can just like completely slack off and not do your job. Like your job is to inform people, your job is to help people. And it's a shame that sales have gotten to where they are, but this is why direct to sales is the future. And this is why people love buying Teslas, at least the buying experience of the Teslas. Everything else up for debate. But they're easy to buy. At least that's the one thing they've got going for them. But I think that's why you see Scout so viciously fighting for them sticking to the direct to consumer things. They're like, this is what people want. And it's like, duh, of course this is what people want. It's just that the middleman's mad that he's getting cut out, but he deserves to get cut out because that's what he's earned for himself with the way they've conducted themselves here, especially in the past 5 or 6 years here. But anyway, JSB says, what's your favorite E-Class generation? I don't have a lot of love for the E-Class in general, honestly. So it's hard for me to pick a favorite generation because none of them are like fantastic to me. Yeah, I honestly can't even, there's not any one that I like over another really. I mean, the new ones are very nice as far as, they have a really good stereo and they're really smooth and comfy. But yeah, there's no favorite E-Class generation I really have, unfortunately. Sorry. And Ryan says, I have a PS5 Pro and it's great. I can't wait for the new Forza. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be great on PS5 Pro. And there's a bunch of cool games coming out this year. As a huge Bond fan, I'm excited for the First Light game that's coming out. I'd love to have time to play that. It looks really cool. And I love the game mechanics they're starting to show off. It seems like it's gonna be very fun. You can go into like license to kill mode. But before that, you're supposed to be non-lethal with all your takedowns and stuff. Just like kind of refreshing, different stuff. And yeah, anyway, I hope I can get this channel to a point where I can take my foot off the gas and not be working until midnight every night, and I can finally get back to playing video games because I miss it. And Lantern Tail says it's not just Prelude. Even S2000s are getting crazy amounts of money. A guy spent $100,000 for an S2000 CR at an auction, only to find out it's a regular S2000 with a CR dress-up kit. Oh man, that's brutal. I feel like they'd probably try and sue someone for doing that, unless the person clearly disclosed that and they just happen to miss it before they put in their giant bid. That's wow. I hadn't heard about that. That's nuts. And Michelle says, I remember in the 8th grade, my STEM teacher bought a new 2013 Mustang GT manual at the time. She had it painted, not wrapped, painted in a cool yellow color. Stood out in the teacher parking lot for sure. I bet. That's awesome. And kudos to her for getting it custom painted. Yeah, yellow Mustangs, it's fun. I mean, they eventually did that. Maybe they didn't do that for that generation, aside from school bus yellow. I know S550s you could get in the yellow, but I guess maybe I could have sworn there was yellow for like maybe it was the 06 or something. I guess maybe they got rid of it. And then yeah, for the 13s they just didn't offer it. But that's cool. She did that. And let me see. Let me see what so yeah, I see Lentils is just saying gas prices. Sorry if I missed the reference there. But Luke says, if the neighbor of yours that had the bad head gasket in the CRV, what did they end up getting for her next car? She ended up getting a Subaru Forester. She got a 2024, so the last year of the old generation, which especially for someone who's been burned by reliability, that's always the safest bet, is to get the last year of a generation. Obviously, you miss out on all the fun goodies and improvements of the next generation, but I understand, the way they're coming at it. So yeah, they got a 24 Forester. I told them that, they shouldn't expect much more than 100,000 miles out of the Subaru before they have head gasket issues as well. I tried to talk to him a little bit about it. It's kind of this what anytime, and you guys probably encounter this as well, when you're giving people car advice, you can kind of quickly sense how much appetite is there, okay, like how much of it is just okay, they're gonna just do what they feel like is best, and how much are they actually going to, want to hear my opinion on, on what they should get next and stuff. So, I try and tread lightly and I don't want to step on toes. But they're like Forrester, and I'm like, are you sure about that? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay. just let it be, because I would have strongly suggested they get a, RAV4, but we'll see. I hope the Forester treats them well, though. And let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, clip this. If dealers somehow remain, humanoid robots and or AI will maybe assist in test drives and negotiations for vehicles in the future. That's an interesting idea. I feel like that I mean, yes, I think that's a good idea, and that certainly would be a better experience, because you could at least program it to not be offensive and not be annoying, hopefully, and it would actually be knowledgeable. So yes, I think that a humanoid robot would probably be a giant upgrade over the average salesman. Again, I know there are some good salesmen. I know maybe some of you even are car salesmen. I know there's many that follow the channel. I'm not disparaging all car salesmen. If you're one of the good ones out there, thank you for the service that you're doing. It obviously more people need to be doing that, but like, for the vast majority that are just phoning it in and being crappy and predatory, yeah, I think humanoid robot would be a huge improvement there. I think it's going to maybe be a while before we see that. And also, again, I don't think we see that. I think you'll see that on the service side for sure. But will you see that on the sales side? I think I think you'll just see direct to consumer. And that's probably going to be the way it'll go, I'm guessing. Maybe once the robots are cheaper, for some of the used stuff, where you can't do direct consumer, I think you'll probably see it there. But for new car sales, I feel like it's probably going to go direct to consumer before robots get cheap enough to have that make sense to replace salesmen. But either way, yeah, it's not looking like a great future for human salesmen, either way you slice it. But thank you so much for the super chat there, Jordan. Yeah, great question. And let me see. Shao says that Chrysler's in such a weird spot right now. It had potential to go up market toward the luxury side, but instead it's just the minivan brand. Pacifica is nice, but not enough. Yeah, and I'm guessing they're going to eventually, it sounds like a new 300 could happen. Again, no inside info, but just from everything, all the rumors and stuff that are out there, and we'll see what they do with that. But like, if it's not a nicer version of the Charger, then it's going to be possibly not a success, in my opinion, especially if it's, only electric and it's some, crazy swoopy kind of thing and all that. I feel like, that would be a little bit harder to justify. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Like everything, yeah, Chrysler should have a nicer version of everything else that's available. I mean, there's not a lot to pick from in the Dodge lineup. And I guess you do. The problem with Stellantis is they also have Alpha. They still like to point at Maserati as their luxury brand, all this stuff. So but I think that Chrysler absolutely has a place. And yeah, I think, having a 300, but then like, why is there no Chrysler version of the Durango or a Grand Cherokee? Take your pick. I don't even care, pick whatever one you want, or do both. I mean, I think there's room for both, but like, any of this stuff, half these Jeeps that you see, the regular ones, even Compass and things like that, all these things can have a Chrysler version that's, a few grand more expensive, a little bit nicer inside. And it doesn't have to be hard, and you don't have to do it for everything, but even just to build your lineup out a little bit more, like we see Lincoln, not a huge lineup, but you take the Explorer, you make it nicer. You take the Expedition, you make it nicer. Like, it's not, doesn't have to be rocket science, so yeah, we'll see. I know it's probably easier said than done, but yeah, I do think Chrysler has potential still. And Chibuga, thank you so much for a super chat. They say it'll be interesting to see how high oil prices go and for how long and what effect it has on EV sales. Yes, absolutely. I think my personal take is it'll probably go over 150 a barrel. And that if it does do that, then effectively we're doubling gas prices from where they were before things started to shoot up here in the past few days. And they're already up like 50 cents basically in just the past 48, 72 hours or whatever. And it's the last thing people need. Again, we were already talking about affordability in America, and that being a crisis, before this stuff. And then why, this is it's just the exact wrong time, the worst possible scenario. And it's also against, a lot of, I mean, this is a midterm year. There's, gas prices always heavily affect how people vote. Just, I can't believe this is like the thing they're running with here. But anyway, I guess they're banking on it like fixing itself quickly too. But like, again, the more and more I see these giant oil refineries going up in flames, that's not coming back overnight. So I don't know. But yes, I think that if I were running a car company right now and I was like running Volkswagen, for example, they took the year off for ID Buzz. Now, ID Buzz is not a great example because it's not a hot seller regardless, but like we just actually heard this week, I don't know if you guys heard, Hyundai just said Ioniq 6 refresh is not coming to the States. It's already on sale in Korea, and we were supposed to get it. We're still getting the 6N, strangely enough, which I guess is just them, having that be a passion project and throwing the money, down the toilet with that to bring it here. And I'm very thankful we're at least getting that. But like Ioniq 6, I think had a place. And yes, sales were terrible recently for it, but I think that it's a sedan. I think there's still a lot of appeal for sedans, and there's not a lot of electric sedans out there. And you're basically, what are you left with now at this point? Because, aside from Tesla and the Model 3, there's not a lot of electric sedans. I mean, you can go to the Audi, but that's more expensive. Volkswagen decided not to sell the ID.7 here. It seems like if I were Hyundai right now, I'd be like, scratch that. We're still bringing the Ioniq 6. And like, I feel like it's going to be a better year for EVs. And I think it's kind of hilarious. I mean, nothing about what's going on in the world right now is hilarious, but I think it's crazy to me how good Toyota's luck is, because this is clearly just pure luck, unless Toyota is actually God and they're running the world or something ridiculous like that. But like the fact that like Toyota, perfectly played the EV era where they're like, okay, we're going to take this slow. They didn't get burned by rushing into things and having these giant gaps in their portfolio like Acura and others. They went slow. They said, okay, we're going to have hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and EVs. And when do all the main EVs come online for Toyota? This year, when I think we could, again, have a ton of people all of a sudden running to EVs because they're terrified of gas prices and they're tired of paying those prices. And Toyota says, here you go. We got brand new, fresh stuff. I mean, they're still not the best in their segments, in some ways, but like good stuff that's, really heavily incentivized right now. Again, they're already offering $6,500 off the BZ Woodland, and also the CHR, I think, which makes them cheaper than their gas equivalents. I think it's actually, it could end up being all these EVs for Toyota could end up working out really well for them this year. Again, depending on how long this all lasts, but based on everything we've been hearing, this stuff's only escalating. It doesn't seem like anything's getting better as far as this war, and so I don't think things are going to turn around anytime soon. So I think it's just a matter of time. People can stomach high gas prices for so long, but then eventually you get to, again, like the 08 situation we talked about earlier. I remember, I mean, I'm sure many of you do as well, all the people who went and were going to go buy a Ford Expedition, or they bought one. I mean, those things got dirt cheap because they were huge gas guzzlers. I mean, all those gas guzzlers died. That's why the Kia, what was it? The Kia Borrego that launched in 08, and again, that was another 4 or 5 year product plan. And by the time it came out, it was conceived back when gas was cheap, and it came out in 08. Also, you had the recession, but like gas prices also, I remember paying those high gas prices back then. And it got, super expensive, and everyone dumped their giant SUVs. And, again, a lot of people were already living paycheck to paycheck and being, pushed to the limit. And now you have this. I think it is going to be a domino effect. It's going to happen quick because we have record high repo already in America before this. We've been talking about this for 6 months, 9 months now. Repos are higher than they've been. I think it's even already surpassed 2008. And now you're going to tell people they got to pay, as of tomorrow, 50 cents more for gas or more. And they're already behind on their car payment. They're already behind on their mortgage payment. I mean, like it's not going to take long for the dominoes to start falling. It might not happen all at once, but it's gonna, you're gonna see, okay, maybe these people can last, and then these people can't last anymore, and then these people can't last anymore. It's just gonna, it's not good. Gas prices going up that fast. We've never seen it before. We've never seen it spike this quickly, even in COVID and stuff. So, and that's, I think, partially also a reflection of just how, again, all this stuff's blowing up over there, and it's not just, a little thing, the little supply shortage or this, that, or the other. Like I think this is properly a mess, to put it lightly. So, yeah, I think I would prepare. I mean, I hate to be gloom and doom, but like you guys know, I'm a straight shooter. I don't see things improving as far as that goes for any time, any reasonable amount of time. So yeah, again, anyone who's in the market, I think it's a good time to look at fuel efficient stuff. If, EVs don't work for you, I think, again, Toyota's timing it perfectly. Brand new RAV4s, all hybrid, all getting 40 mpg or whatever. Perfectly timed. All these things where there's never been more choices, for fuel efficient stuff. And I think, it's something that, might end up saving you a bunch of money, for sure. And I think we're going to see a lot of people in the market as a result of that saying, I wasn't planning on buying a car this year, but I can't keep filling up my Yukon anymore. And so I'm going down to, something else instead. So we'll see. But anyway, Vishal, thank you so much for being a member for 22 months now. I really appreciate it. He says gas prices here in DFW are right about $3.19. Costco a little lower at $2.95. Even yesterday, I filled at Costco for $2.87. Nice. Get that while you can, because it's already, I think, over $3.50 around here. Yeah, it's and I was just talking to another one of the Stellantis reps who's in Southern California, and he's like, oh man, he's like, these gas prices, I mean, because they already pay over $5 a gallon, he's like, it's gonna get real crazy. Yeah, it's a shame. And get all that cheap gas while you can down there, because it's, Texas is a little more isolated, but it's not going to last. That's for sure. And let me see, where are we here? Looks like, also Vishal says, also at the Toyota dealer, they had a $3,000 markup on a RAV4 XLE Premium. Luckily, that's the only car I saw with an addendum sticker. They sell so many RAV4s too that I thought that would be one they would maybe try to not be like that on, especially an XLE Premium. Like, okay, sorry to like really go off again on dealers here, but like, if you are a dealer that has more than 2 brain cells to put together, why are you putting a markup on the cheap one, on the one that is appealing to people who need an affordable RAV4? If you would have put a $3,000 markup on, the top XSE Premium, or, the GR Sport version, or even the Woodland, maybe. Okay, I don't love it, but I can at least understand your rationale a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of extra desirability there. The Woodland's more rugged now. The GR Sport's a new thing. Okay, maybe. But for an XLE Premium, like, like, in what world? Oh man, I'd love to like, do like the what is it? The Chris Hansen thing. if you guys ever watched South Park, like, have a seat, like, so what's going on here? Like why are we doing this? Like, what? Just like, it's just like, it's just ridiculous. And I would love to hear if any thought was put towards this, or if it's just, again, some idiot that has just completely no clue. Anyway, Luke says, I wish they would do a Chrysler Concorde, basically a luxurious Charger. Yeah, that'd be great to call it a Concorde. If you don't want to put the 300 thing on it, Concorde would be great. I'd love to see that. And Lantern tells he spotted the new Gen RAV4 out in the wild. Nice. I have not seen one here myself, and I'm glad you're starting to see them. I know a few others spotted them in the past few weeks here as well, and so I'm glad they're slowly working their way to dealers here. And it is kind of like a lull right now, because RAV4 sales actually dropped quite a bit last month, but they were like, it's just because of the switchover, them just, getting these new ones to the dealers and not having as many of the old ones left to sell people. But yeah, so they're going to start popping up here pretty soon, I think. And Vishal says Honda has had recalled or TSB'd, can't remember, the 9th gen 2016 to 17 Accords for the LED DRL strips failing. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, maybe that's part of what Jordan's seeing there. And Luke says, my next vehicle after the Maverick will either be the upcoming Xterra, a next-gen Ridgeline if they improve the infotainment, or a potential competitor to the Maverick from Toyota. Nice. Yeah, all great choices. Sadly, I don't know if we're going to get a new Ridgeline. I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have already happened. So I don't know. I feel like, and we know all Honda's plans for this year, and it's not coming this year. So unfortunately, I don't know if that's something that's gonna come, but yeah, hopefully Toyota finally jumps into the ring there for that. But it sounds like they're not in a hurry to do that either, strangely. So Xterra might be the only one of those three that actually happens. So you might just have that one win by default for you there, but it should be really cool with the Xterra. I'm sure it'll be great if Nissan actually executes it as well as it sounds like they are. And McPlayer says, I know the brand has some variable opinions, but I love that with Tesla they just give you a key card and 30 minutes with the car. As far as maybe you're talking about like test drives and stuff, yeah, I mean a lot of that is one thing I think a lot of sales places have done better at, is I know more of them will let you go alone on a test drive now. So that is certainly nice, and I would certainly push for that. By the way, if any of you are car shopping in the future, it really push hard to be there by yourself, because otherwise, maybe you guys are better at multitasking than I am, but salesmen always distract you. And that's kind of the point is, keep the conversation going, keep your focus away from the car, so that you don't analyze it too closely or, poke too deep. You just, had surface level impressions, basic stuff that you notice, and I think that's part of the tactic. So always test drive alone if you can. And also that way you can actually hear stuff in the car, rattles, things like that, because it's hard to hear that if you got a dumb salesman blabbering next to you and, being loud. So definitely always test drive solo. And Luke says, I like buying cars in mid-cycle refresh years. I feel like that's the sweet spot for new goodies, but still decent reliability. Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. Absolutely. Because usually you don't get mechanical changes. It's just a little bit of new tech. And yeah, a new fresh look and all that. I agree. That's a good way to do it too. And Lantern Tail says the one thing Tesla is doing well is the software updates. It keeps an old car fresh and exciting for a long time. I agree. I think some of the other companies are starting to learn from that. Rivian, I think, does some pretty good updates. And actually, I'll put this into my next Lyric update because there is more to talk about with the Lyric. I'm not sure. I probably will wait until the 1 year anniversary in August to do it, unless something really egregious comes up in the meantime. But the Lyric actually did an update here in the past few weeks, and they fixed one of my biggest gripes. They actually updated it so it now gives you a percentage in the gauge cluster. Previously, it was just like the giant bar, and you only had a percentage when you turned the car off and opened the door. Then it would give you like the big display that showed you the percentage, or if you're charging it. But now it shows it, and it still shows your range. So they do both in the cluster, which I think they did also. Optic introduced that first, like last year or something. But like, it's now in our Lyric, and I hopped in the other day, and because I don't drive the Lyric a whole lot because I'm usually in driving press cars, and Beth is usually the one always driving the Lyric. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you," but I hopped in and I was like, I have percentage on the Lyric now. I'm so happy, because that's so valuable for road trips. Because the guessometer, as I call them, on the range estimates are always so wildly off. So, but percentage you can actually count on. Okay, this is how much battery I actually have. Really helps on road trips. So there are some things that other companies do. And I know Ford was actually pretty good with Mach-E too. Mach-E had some nice improvements and also some not so great ones along the way. But they did a pretty good job of updating it regularly and keeping you updated on what was going to actually be happening with the car and, how they're changing it and stuff. Lots of good updates to Blue Cruise and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely others that do that. But yeah, Tesla, I mean, their software has always been great. That's one of the things people really love about Tesla is the software. And I can't fault them for that. The software is, very well done aside from full self-driving. But everything else, yeah, infotainment wise is pretty good. We'll see if it gets a little more complicated once they finally add CarPlay, if they still actually end up doing that. Because that does usually introduce a few more bugs and make things a little bit harder to master. But yeah, Tesla software has always been really great. And Lantern Tales says the Chrysler 200 can come back as the sporty midsize car as the new Camry and Accord ditch their V6 and 2-liter engines. Yeah, I think that would be great to put the Pentastar in something like the 200. Now I'm trying to figure out what that. I mean, they'd have to pull something from, yeah, one of the international brands as far as what would that be. And I mean, like I think there's like the Fiat. What's it called? The not the Tempo, but the Tipo, maybe something like that. Maybe they bring that in. I mean, V6 wouldn't fit in that, but if you kind of use that as chassis and make it a little bit bigger to fit Pentastar, I think, yeah. I mean, like Chrysler 200, if they would have just kept that thing in production and refreshed it like they did for the Pacifica, I actually think a current gen or the last Chrysler 200 could actually be a good seller these days. I always thought that car got a bad rap, and I will go to my grave defending 200 and Dart. Both were great cars, and no one appreciated them. Aside from one of my fans, Nathaniel, he's a big Chrysler fan, but and obviously there's people who bought them and enjoy them, but most people just have no love for those cars, and I don't know. I think they're missing out. And also, sorry, Jordan, I missed your super chat, and I see Sarks after that too. But Jordan, thank you for your super chat. He says, Japan, no oversight on markups on U.S. soil. Yeah, that's the whole thing with the franchising laws is, they can tell, the dealers how to do certain things. I'm guessing that's all part of the negotiation, but like they have no control over pricing. They say this is why MSRP exists, because MSRP is manufacturer's suggested retail price. But even that, the wording suggested leaves that door open. And, but that's why MSRP is what the car company says, hey, this is what we'd like to charge for this, but the dealer can do whatever they want. And that's, yeah, but I mean, again, this is why all these brands would love to get rid of dealers if they could. I mean, they won't admit it because they got to be two-faced about it, but like, they don't want to have to deal with a middleman. I mean, they want to control their own brand, and I don't blame them. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, the Japanese brands or any brands, they have no leverage there as far as pricing. I mean, they've tried, and the companies have gotten so creative. I mean, even Chevy, if you flip a Z06, they, void your warranty, or, they blacklist you and, all this stuff. And there's been some of those things for some of the really desirable stuff, but, there's really no way to really handcuff dealers when it comes to markups. You can ding them by holding back allocations and stuff, but that tug of war usually doesn't end up very well, because then you end up just hurting your sales if you're taking away the hotter products, for that brand and for that dealer. Then you're just shooting yourself in the foot there. So it's kind of tough, but yeah, I don't think they really have much leverage until they can get those laws to change, or again, they just go direct to consumer. And Sark, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. They said, thank you, Matt. Because of you, I also became a Subaru WRX STI fan. I'm sure you've talked about this already, but thoughts on oil prices getting above 100 a barrel? Hopefully you caught some of this, because I don't want to repeat this too much here tonight. But I just hope it won't be like summer of 2022. It will absolutely be that, and then it'll be more. I mentioned earlier, yeah, I fully expect it to be higher. I mean, even I think today it already this evening touched 110 a barrel. I don't know if it's going to stay there and keep going or drop or what, because the price is about as volatile as the Tesla stock right now. But I mean, it's not getting better. It's only going to go up. There might be little relief measures that are done. Again, there's talking about reducing the oil sanctions on Russia. We also do have a giant petroleum reserve that Trump has previously said he's not going to tap into yet, but he's going to tap into it pretty soon. There's no way, because again, he's going to start feeling the heat for this real hot, real quick. And, we have reserves. They will probably do that to try and bring a little bit of relief, whether they keep that card in their back pocket for November, but I don't think their thing is going to last that long. I may disagree, but if they assume this is going to be wrapped up by then maybe they play that card early and they tap into those reserves. But regardless, it's not going to be great. And so I think, yeah, plan on gas being expensive for the foreseeable future. And for a while, I'd say, because like I said, they blew up all these refineries, all these depots, and you got that strait that shut down, and things aren't de-escalating at all. So uh, yeah, there's no relief in sight there. So yeah, definitely try to get your cheap gas while you can, and brace for higher prices. And that also, affects more than just gas prices, obviously, because diesel's going way up. That's going to increase shipping costs. And of course, those greedy corporations aren't going to take that on the chin. They're going to pass that on to the consumer. So all your goods, anything that's trucked in, anything that's shipped in on planes. I mean, they're already saying, jet fuel is going to go way up. So airfare, I was telling people this weekend, like my sister is going to book a flight. I'm like, book it now. Like, if you can afford to book it now, book it now, because that's all going to shoot up. And this is stuff, again, because of supply chain disturbances. We learned this in the COVID era. So hopefully everyone remembers this. When you have supply chain disruptions, even if everything miraculously went away tomorrow and everyone was, completely chill and cool with each other tomorrow, you would still have disruptions that take months to clear up as a result of this stuff. And again, like I said, a lot of these production facilities are down and will need to be rebuilt. So it's gonna be an expensive summer for travel, for people rethinking their vacations and stuff like that. It's definitely brace for summer of 2022 at the minimum is what I would expect, I'd say. And confirmation, thank you for joining the club. I really appreciate that, or rejoining, I suppose, there, because obviously you've got the 6+ month badge. And he says, Crown Signia GR with the Grand Highlander 362 Hybrid Max engine. We need a working class performance wagon. I love the way you think, and that absolutely would be amazing. I mean, they are GR sporting a lot of stuff in Europe, and also in Japan, a lot of GR sport things. So that's something that they have done, and I think that they certainly have an appetite. We already saw this with RAV4. I think the next candidate most likely you'll see is Camry, before you get to the fun stuff like Crown Signia. But I think it's possible. They do have the Crown Sport in Japan. That already has the GR Sport thing, which I wish we'd get that because it looks so cool. It looks like a mini Ferrari Purosangue. I don't know why we don't get that one, honestly. But regardless, yes, I love that idea. The next time I'm at a Toyota event, I will bring that up with management and have them give me a nice solid eye roll. But I'm right there with you. I would love to see that, and I think that could be really fun. Counterpoint, because I have to be annoying about it. I'd say BZ Woodland is kind of that. Obviously, a little bit more rugged and stuff with the look, but that's what it is. It's 375 horsepower. It's phenomenal. If you watch my review on BZ Woodland, that if you want Crown Signia GR, test drive a BZ Woodland, paint the fender flares, get some GR stuff from Japan, overnight parts from Japan, and then you can kind of cobble that together yourself. But that's one of the reasons why I love BZ Woodland, and it's like one of my favorite Toyotas, arguably since the actual GR products. I mean, those are still my favorites in the lineup, but I think BZ Woodland is probably the next favorite behind the GR stuff, because it's fast. It's so fast. It's like under 4 seconds in reality for the 0 to 60 is what people were getting at the launch event. So yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months, though. Really appreciate confirmation. And also, I hadn't heard, no one's weighed in. I mentioned this earlier. If you guys have any opinion as far as what you would like to see for the member badge, for the 4-year badge, what color you'd like to see, let me know. Otherwise, I can just pick one on my own. But if you guys have any opinions, what you'd like to see for the 4-year badge, especially those of you that are going to be coming up on that anniversary here soon, let me know. Any kind of colors, the 3-year badge was the white and purple, silvery kind of purple thing. So if you'd like to see a different color, let me know. Otherwise, I'll flip a coin and try it out myself. Just wanted to put that out there in case some of you missed that earlier. I'd love to hear what you guys would like to see for that. Let me see. Lancepot says, I'm so glad I don't work at a gas station anymore. There are 3 gas refineries where I live, and 95% of their production goes out of state. It got old listening to the complaints. Oh, so maybe you guys have some gas shortages, maybe? That would be unfortunate. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad. We hopefully don't have the, although we seems like we are kind of repeating the 70s in some ways. Hopefully we don't have the oil embargo kind of crisis or anything like that bad. I think, part of the diversified powertrain lineups we have now will kind of soften that demand a little bit thanks to those, EVs and hybrids and stuff. But we'll see about any shortages. Honestly hadn't thought about that, but that could be something down the road too. We'll see. But Shibuka says there are such good deals on Equinox right now. Can see them getting snatched up. Oh yeah, I mean they're dirt cheap, and that's why my neighbor went for Equinox EV because he was like, "What is the cheapest EV I can get?" I'm like, "You're not going to beat Equinox EV. No one's touching that price right now." So he grabbed one of them, and yeah, I think the dealer like was starting the discussions at 10 grand off. I don't actually know what my neighbor paid for his, but like, yeah, I mean, there's some places elsewhere in the country. I mean, you have to be careful about how they advertise stuff because they just bait and switch you with BS numbers and then give you a song and a dance once you're actually in the dealership. But like, some of them are supposedly advertised for like 19 grand even for a base one that's like 35, like that's a huge, I mean, we're talking almost half off these things. And I don't care, even without CarPlay and stuff, like if you can get a brand new 300 plus mile EV for $19,000 all day long, that is the best deal in the auto industry, bar none. No one comes even close. Wrap it up and call it a day. Like that's it. No need to do any research. No need to do like you're not going to touch that. And so yeah, I think that's why you're going to see a lot of this get snatched up pretty quickly. I think this is also phenomenal timing for Bolt. I mean, I think Equinox is definitely the better way to go, and it's not much more than Bolt EV. But if Equinox EV starts to get into shortage territory, I think Bolt coming online like right now is going to be really nicely timed for people who especially if electricity bills are also going up because of AI stuff, and also partially they will go up a little bit because of the fuel pricing. You know, extra efficient EVs like Bolt, are going to, I think, be a little bit more desirable too. So I think, I think some of these companies might really have gotten, their products at least saved. Obviously, there's other big issues to worry about with all the fallout in the Middle East and stuff. But at least as far as the EVs goes, I think they may be a little bit optimistic for the first time this year about those. And Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. And Shibuka says, yeah, I remember used Geo Metro prices going crazy back then. Interesting. That's fun that you remember that. And yeah, so I don't recall when the Geo Metros, was there something in the 90s? Because Geo Metro wasn't around in the 70s, but if there was high gas prices, maybe you're talking, well, yeah, because it wouldn't have been 08. So it had to have been something in the 90s, I'm guessing, but I don't recall any bad fuel pricing back then, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm forgetting something because I was just a kid at the time. But anyway, Jordan says YouTube has been pushing justification videos to buy used older vehicles that are easy for mechanics to work on and less tech that the government could eventually remotely control. The remotely control thing, that's kind of silly to me, just because there's limited capability, and that's assuming, again, there's no or like the car companies just completely open things up, because there are protections in place for all this stuff, that they obviously foresaw these problems and made sure that everything's firewalled and protected and all that stuff. And that's also, like, to me, that's always one of those like doomsday things that if you look at it from all angles, there's very little reason why the government would care about like turning your car off or things like that. I don't know. To me, that's not something that's remotely a concern for me, and I worry about a lot of stuff that's silly to worry about probably, with even that's not something that is a blip on my radar. But as far as older stuff for mechanics to work on, that certainly makes sense. I mean, yes, if you can avoid high-tech stuff and you don't need newer stuff, Yeah, I mean, because I've actually just been talking to some other neighbors that are considering buying a car here soon, and they're like, the dealer is really pushing hard for an extended warranty. And I'm like, typically, I would have like, about extended warranties. There's sometimes where they're helpful, other times where they're not. Depends on the warranty you're getting and the pricing of it, and how it's all packaged and stuff. Um, but I'm like, now, like, if you actually are planning on keeping something beyond the warranty period, the regular warranty period, I'm like, actually you probably should get an extended warranty, at least to cover like the screens and all this stuff. Because like my sister had it save her butt twice now with her CX5, where the one headlight went and it has a self-leveling thing that was $1,100, and thankfully it was under the extended warranty. And then she just had her automatic emergency braking camera in the windshield that just died, another $1,100 charge that she thankfully had the warranty covered that. But she'd be out $2,200 in the past year on her 2022 CX5 if it wasn't for that extended warranty. So, even just those two things, I don't think she paid that much for the extended warranty. So, I mean, it's already paid for itself. And I think as you see more of these things, not only being higher tech, but as we're seeing more recalls, more problems with tech in cars, and that being really this Achilles heel of a lot of cars, I'm starting to recommend it for people in my personal life, starting to recommend extended warranties, especially if you're getting it at the dealer level and it's discounted or it's part of the deal. You know, I actually do recommend extended warranties for most modern cars. Um, and so, yes, if you don't need that stuff and you're okay going for something older, yeah, you're better future proofing yourself there, because there's just more stuff you can physically fix yourself. And that is certainly the great appeal of older cars. And that could be also part of why, again, these older things we were talking about, Boss 302 earlier, those kind of things having staying power. Like Boss 302, for example, has a tiny little screen, just basically shows you the radio station that's playing, a little black and white or blue and black screen or whatever it is, in those old things. I think there was an option for a touchscreen in those, which you could easily swap with an aftermarket unit, but it's very limited. There's no screen-based climate controls, all these kinds of things where it's like, you can't just be like, I'm not going to replace my screen. Like if it controls everything, like you're screwed, so like, I think, yeah, there is certainly value to buying older used stuff if you can. And this is also one of the other reasons why, I do see the extra appeal of used vehicles, either just for the cost savings or that, just predictability, reliability, known quantity, kind of stuff. This is why I've been, trying to do more used vehicles in the past couple of years, and I'm going to be doing more here hopefully this month, because I think that's something that's underserved, and not a lot of videos out there on that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely gonna do more of that. But yeah, not a bad idea if you can live with something old. And Luke says, I got super lucky last Tuesday. Something in my gut told me to fill up my Maverick. I filled up for 265 the next day. And then the next day, the same place was 335. Holy crap. That's even higher than I thought I saw for a day's jump for some of these other places. That's nuts. Well, you have a very good intuition, my friend. Man, yeah, I don't want to suggest any gambling or anything, but follow your gut, because it sounds like it has definitely steered you right, at least as far as that goes. So you got a good gut there to guide you. Lantern Tail says, is it a good idea to buy a demo car? Demo cars typically are okay to buy, in my opinion, because so I guess it kind of depends. So service loaners may be a little bit more iffy, which sometimes get branded as demos in some brands and some dealers. But if we're talking about just a demo car, that's really basically demos in the traditional sense, at least, are just used for test drives or for sales managers to take home for 6 months or whatever, and kind of have as their free car or whatever. So if it's those types of things, I mean, they're not being babied, but they are, they're very still early in their car's life. They're maintained properly, and so you don't have to worry about skimping there. And so as long as it hasn't been rough around the edges as far as the appearance and stuff goes, I think a demo car is a fine thing typically to get. Yeah. And it's also a great way to save money too. So especially when you're talking about like some of these demo lease deals, like leasing, especially because you can't lease used cars, but you can lease demos. And that's how we got Beth's first Mercedes for really cheap. And then even with the Lyric, we kind of did like it was like kind of like a service loaner kind of thing. And that, even though it had super low miles, it was like that was a nice way to save some money on the lease there. So that's definitely a good way to do it. But she also says my next car, based on current gas price trends, will be a Toyota hybrid, either a Camry or a RAV4. Since I have 2 family members working at Toyota, I'd be able to use VSPP. My parents used it for the TX. Nice. Yeah, well, I mean that especially, yeah, $8,000 off the MSRP for the TX. That's awesome. Yeah, if you can get that discount, absolutely, definitely, you want to get a Toyota for your next car. And Lantern Tale says, do you think Toyota still has the best hybrid systems? And could you compare it to the Toyota, Hyundai, and other hybrids? Yeah, so I kind of talk about this in my reviews of all those different hybrids, and I can compare them a little bit, more in depth there. But I will say, high level stuff is that the Toyota system is one of the most responsive. It's very eager. The Honda system feels more like an EV, so it's because is actually just the gas engine powering, electric motors basically. So that's going to feel the most like an electric vehicle and is very responsive. And I do really actually prefer, I think the Honda system is one of the punchier ones, but I really like the Toyota system because it's so eager to just rev the crap out of the engine at the drop of a hat. The Hyundai system is my least favorite. It has a inconsistent handoff still where it's, there's just a lot of stuff going on in the Hyundai hybrid system. Because you have a gas engine with a turbo going through a regular automatic transmission, and then it goes through the electric stuff. So you have multiple stages of stuff that all need to wake up and come online when you put your foot down. And this is, you can watch any of my Hyundai or Kia hybrid reviews. It's the same thing every time. Yeah, you hit the gas, you get a little initial electric jolt from the electric stuff doing its thing, but that's a very weak electric sensation. So you get a little initial jolt. Then you have a gap where you're hanging in midair, and then you have gas engine waking up, spooling up turbo, picking the right gear for the right speed you're at, and then that all comes online and then takes you the rest of the way. But there's some times where I'm caught in the middle of an intersection where I'm trying to pull out quickly and I'm like, crap, and I'm not going fast enough because I'm waiting for all this stuff to kick up and go. And we're talking about a second or two. But if you are in a very busy intersection and a second or two is the difference between you making it or not making it, or, things like that, where like it's borderline. It's not a safety issue, but like you need to really be familiar with the system and how it works. So you don't get caught flat-footed, because that absolutely does happen. And even with the refreshed 2026 stuff, I just talked about this in the Sportage hybrid, it still does it. So they still haven't mastered that. So, I am happy that Hyundai offers a hybrid. And if, the Toyota and the Hyundai just don't work, or the Toyota and the Honda just don't work for you, either pricing wise or whatever, I don't blame you for going for the Hyundai. It has the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, as well for the powertrain, which is nice. Although I think the hybrids, at least, the hybrid batteries of the others are, warranted that long too. But regardless, like there's reasons to go for the Hyundai, I suppose, but like driving wise, definitely Toyota and Honda are the best for that. So yeah, but definitely go watch all those videos for, more in-depth thoughts beyond that. But I see we've also had a few other messages come in here. So first off, Sean, thanks so much for being a member for 44 months now, almost 4 years there for Sean. Thank you so much. He says, coworker is offering me a 69 Toyota Corona for $800, complete car, but doesn't run. I'm trying to decide if I want it. Would be a cool project. It depends on the condition. As far as is there a lot of rust? Is there, but if it's, I can't imagine that being a bad buy, not to be a bad influence, and don't hate me if it turns out to be a basket case, but like if it's a complete car and it just needs motor work, and it's, enjoyable otherwise, or it's not too far gone, you can't buy anything for $800 anymore. And as far as cars go, that's, I don't know. I feel like that, especially if you're looking for a cool project, that sounds very cool to me. I say go for it, but again, you do what's best for you. Jorge, thank you so much for a super chat. He says that Prelude as an enthusiast commuter / GT may be looking a little better considering gas prices. Good point. And yeah, good night to you as well if you're signing off here, Jorge. True. Prelude may get a little more appealing here. Still, I think the price is still really hard to swallow. And even with elevated gas prices, it's going to have to go up a lot more for you to make up the gas savings of even a 33 grand GR86 over, a $9,000 more expensive or $10,000 more expensive Prelude. Like, that's a lot of gas, even at expensive gas prices. So 10 grand is a lot of gas. So, I mean, I still think, and even if it were equal pricing, I'd say the GR86 is going to be the better car because it's a real sports car, not a, coupe Civic hatch or whatever. Anyway, yeah. So, but I agree. For some people who have the disposable cash and say, "Oh, I don't like paying a bunch of money for gas," where they do a lot of miles, where they can make that up a lot quicker. Yeah, I think Prelude might be helped a little bit for sure. We'll see how much though, and if Honda dealers keep being Honda dealers, they might not actually ever get off the ground there. We'll see what happens. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, last gen Chrysler 300 get an extended warranty. Nah, I mean, I think that, the Uconnect 8.4-inch touchscreen is a known quantity. There's a zillion of them out there if you need to go to a junkyard and pull one. So I wouldn't worry too much about that one. And you still do have a lot of physical controls and stuff. And they're pretty well known, as far as whether you're talking Pentastar, you're talking the Hemis, all those motors, there's no surprises there. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into if you do the research. So no, that's one I don't think you really have to worry about that too much. I mean, again, in certain instances, if the deal is right and stuff, an extended warranty could make sense for anything. But, that's not a car I'm paranoid about as far as reliability goes. So, I would have less, desire for an extended warranty on that compared to some other stuff. And great question. Thanks for asking, Jordan. And let me see. Where were we here? So Sark says, thank you, man. I just joined in and realized you answered a similar question earlier. As car guys, us filling up 93, it'll be even worse. Car parts will go up too because of the shipping. Yeah, right. Yeah, and you're right. 93 going to be expensive. It sucks for sure. And I see Jorge says orange gets my vote for 4 years. We'll see. See if people are getting tired of winning yet, because that's what they said. They're going to get tired of winning. I think people might be tired of winning if this is what winning looks like. Anyway, Jordan says, thoughts on a 100% A-plus crash rated government assistance vehicle, SNAP benefit type vehicle accessible to U.S. citizens, payments established. I'm just not seeing current vehicle prices being realistic for minimum wage workers like me. Chad and I share our fusion. Yeah, it's sad that it is the way it is. I think that would be a hard way to solve that problem. I think there's more efficient ways of solving that than engineering a car specifically for that purpose. Also because if you look at other countries, like, there was, like Russia made, the communist cars in the Cold War era and stuff that were garbage cars, but it was kind of, again, this like, oh, we need to make a people's car kind of thing. And it usually doesn't go well, Volkswagen Beetle being the rare exception to that. But, I mean, there's all kinds of things, that are being introduced as far as, just wealth taxes and stuff. I mean, there was the one that just, if we tax, I don't remember all the details, so I won't get into it. But, just the idea that, like, if we actually had a wealth tax, and even just reinstated the wealth tax that we had like 10 or 15 years ago, or whatever it was, like I think it was something like each household, would be like thousands and thousands of dollars that could be like direct payments just from just that. Not to mention all the social services, the better transit. It's all the things that you can improve if we just like tax billionaires a percentage that they wouldn't even miss in the slightest. Like the massive amounts of improvement that would give. Just the wealth disparity between CEO and executive pay and the lowest paid worker in those companies. And if you look historically, back when times were better and the middle class was healthier, you don't have these giant wage gaps. If you look at how much did a CEO make in 1955 or whatever, golden year you want to go to the lowest paid worker back then, it was a way tighter gap. you did not have these gigantic bloated pay packages and people who were running car companies into the ground, getting these golden parachutes of tens of millions of dollars just to walk away from their job. I mean, just ridiculous things in corporate culture that happen. So I think that fixing those things, not only does it, fix like your transportation problem, but it also, fixes social services, and it, helps people to maybe have some subsidized daycare things and things that, would improve people's quality of life in a variety of ways. Again, not to get political, I suppose, but like, I don't know how any person that isn't a billionaire is in support of like the trickle down thing doesn't work, is the bottom line. Like, Elon Musk making another $100 billion, that's not going to, make us any richer. So I think it's better for it to be used to, help all of us that are maybe needing it a little bit more. It doesn't have to be communism. It just can be the same kind of taxes we had for a long, long time in this country when things were better. You just look back at the historical tax rates. Look at how much people got taxed over a certain percentage, over a certain pay. You can change that for inflation. And I mean, it's crazy. Like, it was like, I think a 40% income tax, or maybe it went up to 70% at one point for like over, I don't know, a couple $1,000,000 or something. Like, it was crazy. And other countries have this stuff, and it doesn't wreck their economies. So like, anyway. I'm moving on from that. So let me see here. Sark says hybrids are even more appealing now. My uncle had a 25 Forester touring hybrid for a little while, and in 1,700 miles, he only filled up a full tank 3 times. I love how hybrid technology has evolved. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to see, and it I think is going to keep on just getting better and better. With the range extender hybrids and all that as well. And confirmation says Gulf War maybe, but Chibuga says he's talking about during 2008, even though the last Metro was 2001. Used prices were crazy. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. For some reason, I didn't remember that from back then. Anything fuel efficient? I remember the fuel efficient stuff definitely going through the roof for sure. But you can Google a Motor Trend article from 2008 called "Has the World Gone Mad for the Geo Metro?" Interesting. I appreciate the suggestion. I'll have to read that. That'll be a fun read. So that could also be very insightful for modern times here. So I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the suggestion. And Jordan says, I bought a 2003 Dodge Stratus Coupe XSXT, and I learned my lesson because I later found out it was a salvage title. Oh man, that kind of crap, that should definitely be illegal for them to like not fully disclose that to you right up front. That's crazy. And Typhoon says, have you driven the 01X yet? Oh, I wish. I haven't even driven a regular 01 yet. And I asked for that from my Chevy rep the last time I talked to them on the phone, and they actually like chuckled when I asked, because that's just, it's a very hard car. And no, they weren't, it wasn't like a diss against me. They were just like, we're not going to be, doing regular press cars for the 01s. So, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to review even that or the X. Maybe they'll surprise us. We'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I'm not anticipating getting to drive that car. And honestly, I'm okay with that. When things get to a certain speed level, it gets irresponsible to review on roads with public traffic and stuff. It's just like that. The 01X, to properly show you guys what that car can do, in my hands at least, on the road, that gets kind of reckless, to be honest. And that's kind of why I'm kind of happy to not do some of the craziest stuff that's out there, because it's like, okay, if I do an acceleration, I'm immediately breaking the speed limit. And I mean, some of the stuff, it can be a gray area, and it's not quite as insane, but like with those types of things, like there's no mystery there. Like if I have my foot to the floor for more than a second, I'm going very fast. And especially now as a dad and as someone who's, a more responsible person than I think I was, 10 or 15 years ago. Just, yeah, that's a car I'm happy to never review. I'm sure it's a blast, and I'd love to review it on track. And that's the kind of car, like, I would go in the launch event for that, where I can properly and safely evaluate that car, but I can't do that on the roads, honestly. So that's kind of, if I'm just driving it at 7/10 on a back road or something. Or, I mean, 7/10, and that's insane, I'm sure. But like if I'm driving it, you know, sane speeds, it's gonna be a complete bore. Um, yeah, I think Z06 is about as high as I need to go as far as Corvettes, which I've already done. So I'm good. But I'm sure it's a blast and it's an impressive car for sure. Um, and confirmation, thank you so much for a super chat. He says high top marginal individual tax rate was in the 90s, like in the 50s. Oh, the tax rate was in the 90% in the 50s. Yeah, it was okay. I didn't realize it was that high. I just didn't remember. But yeah, yeah, very, very high. There's still plenty of rich people. We saw the golden age of Hollywood and all these other things, no shortage of money and opulence and all that. So, and yet you could go and be a regular assembly line worker and be able to provide for your family and have your wife be a stay-at-home mom if she wanted to be. And like, you know, that's why, like, this isn't like a hard nut to crack. Like, you look at the tax rates, you look at the giant wealth disparity, and that's why we don't have a middle class anymore. Like, it's that simple, at least to me. Feel free to disagree, but it's run the math, just run the numbers, and then you divide that out by however many millions of people there are in America. It's real easy. It's real easy. All the things we say we can't afford, which is also a load of crap because we're dropping $2 million Tomahawk missiles every few minutes. But yet we can't afford healthcare subsidies. We can't afford, the tax credits for EVs. Oh, we're blowing all this money. And then we just gave that same amount of money in a bailout to Venezuela or whoever. It's like, it's all full of crap. Once you got to start dropping bombs, the budget goes out the window, and all of a sudden we've got billions of dollars to burn that apparently we didn't have the money to help people pay for their healthcare costs and all this other stuff. Anyway, I'm getting political here tonight. I apologize, but it's impossible these days. We're living these such insane times, and it does bleed into the car world. With gas prices and pricing of everything, and people not being able to buy these cars as a result of how messed up everything is. So anyway, but last few questions here, then we'll sign off. And I commend the 53 of you that have still stuck around despite all my discussion here tonight. Thank you for your support. So let me see. Michelle says on the Toyota lot, I saw they had a Camry XLE without the pano roof. That'd be the way to get a Camry. I don't need anything. Something I would barely use. Yeah. The pano roof is fun. I think, pano roofs just in general, certain cars, it's more beneficial than others. But if you've ever had even a regular moonroof, most people, you're not really even seeing it. Like most moonroofs stop like, beyond your peripherals. And, you can maybe look up and enjoy it and you get the extra airflow, but like, you're not seeing that. As long as the rear seat passengers that get the most, especially out of the pano roofs, they get the actual benefit out of that. And like my daughter loves it. So like, for me, it's like absolutely, I want to have it just for her, if nothing else. But like, yeah, if you're just a driver, and you're doing it for yourself, like you're not getting a whole lot out of the pano roof for sure. So I totally agree with you on that take. And Dave says for the late 60s Toyotas, check parts availability first. Good advice, Dave. Yeah. In regards to that other question earlier there from Sean. And let me see, Lantern Tales, I appreciate the reminder there. And Sark says, it's funny you mentioned the communist era cars. My family is from the USSR, immigrated to the US a few years after the USSR collapsed. My dad and grandpa had I don't even know how to say that, a Zinguili at the time. And it was so unreliable. They bought it in the early 80s as a 10-year-old used car. It was more expensive to buy a used car versus a new car because that was always a long waiting line for new cars. Wow, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I'm sure they have some crazy stories they could tell. But thanks for sharing that one. That's crazy, and that's why it's important to have the free market stuff. But we gotta make sure that we don't let the greed go crazy there. And let me see. Jordan says, no disrespect, but I think an autistic person interested in car sales, drive along with a salesman, could give us honest details and statistics of vehicles. Yeah, I mean, I that's what I love about, anyone that's on the spectrum. There's a lot of people that they're so incredibly smart, and the different perspective they bring with things is amazing as well. But yeah, that would be, there's all kinds of, I mean, even just like, if I had if I don't know, was like some trust fund kid or something, like I'd honestly just hang out at dealerships and like help people just because it feels good to help people and give them the correct information and stuff. Um, but yeah, it'd be great to have better info at dealers and have more higher quality salesmen for sure. And let me see. So yeah, I appreciate the respect there to Typhoon and Lancelot. And Jordan says, thanks for the lives. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out here in this one. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys. We'll be getting back to the Wednesday lives here now. And yeah, be sure to also stay tuned for some fun tomorrow in the Charger RT under embargo, so I can't talk about how it drives. But we were at the Team O'Neill Rally Driving School in Vermont. And I drove on a rally course for the first time. I will elaborate more on that on Wednesday whenever I'm able to talk more about the car. But on a rally stage in snowy Vermont, as a Super Ducks fan, you guys probably know, that was a cool experience. So I'm excited to chat with you guys more about that. Don't miss that on Wednesday if you can make it. And signing off here, I see Sark says, yeah, it's true, man. Corporate greed has become such a big issue these days with less and less regulation. Nonetheless, thank you for the live. Absolutely. And thank you. And Chadwick, thanks also for stopping by here at the end and for hanging out here with us. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great, safe, happy, healthy week. Like I said, try and top up on gas while you can. But yeah, hope everyone yeah, stays strong out there. And yeah, we'll chat more on Wednesday. But love you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out here on a Sunday evening with me and listening to all the rambling. And thanks for the great conversation, all the great insight, all the great learning. I'm going to go read that article that was suggested about the Geo Metro here next. And but yeah, thank you all so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.